Good evening. Hi, I'm Stu Heller, moderator of the Eight Olive Speakers Forum, speaking to you from our satellite studio in the Windermere section of Seattle, even though I have this phony background showing me at a lake somewhere. I picked it out because it's sort of romantic. And our speaker tonight is going to talk about computer dating. So I thought it might be useful. Um, Let me tell you a little bit about our speaker, Linda Moldauer. Linda grew up in Philadelphia in a close-knit conservative family. She had a kosher home, didn't drive on the Sabbath, and lived in a 99% Jewish neighborhood. She went to Hebrew school, but in those days, girls didn't have a bat mitzvah. She was confirmed instead, and that was the end of her formal Jewish education. Now, she's told me she didn't have a Gentile friend until she was in college. She graduated from Drexel University with a BS degree, taught preschool for a few years, and moved onto working in the business world when she moved to Seattle with her husband, who had just graduated from law school. The last 20 years of her working career were in sales. She worked for McKesson, a Fortune 20 company, where she was in the medical supply division and had a successful career selling medical supplies to physician offices. There's some more here, but I'm going to let Linda take over and talk about computer dating and fill in any more of her background she feels appropriate. Linda, thanks for joining us, and please educate us on computer dating.
Alrighty, let me change my computer view. Or do I need to pin myself? I guess I need to pin myself.
You're pinning yourself?
There we go. Okay. So, tantalizing tales of internet dating. Does that sound provocative? It was supposed to. Um, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of opening your heart to find your next true love. Or perhaps this might be more appropriate for your children, nieces and nephews, or cousins. The topics are going to range from explaining the dangers of opening yourself to strangers to the joy of meeting new people. I'm also going to talk about the 3 websites that I was on and my personal story of how I use these websites and some stories about attempted scams. Internet dating can be fun and exciting, or a tiresome chore. It's what you make of the experience. Forrest Gump likes to say that life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Well, you can say the same thing about internet dating. It's a box of chocolates and you never know what you're going to get. I wanted to share my personal reasons for starting internet dating. I became a widow 3 years ago after a 50-year marriage, and I had no interest in ever dating anyone again. I can remember saying to a friend, I don't want to go through training a man all over again. I am very happy the way I am, and this is the way it's going to be. Then a year passed, and I have a friend, my friend Len. He's my guardian angel. He looks after me. I know now that my husband Ralph asked him to make sure that I was safe and okay. And he does that. He does that all the time with his care and loving personality. Um, so he started talking to me about finding someone. And I just listened politely and I kind of ignored him. And then a few months later, he brought it up again. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. And then he said, well, who are you looking for? What kind of person? What qualities do they want? And I literally got sick to my stomach. And I said, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Another year goes by and I was ready because I had created a new life for myself after Ralph died. I have lots of friends, lots of community, lots of activities that I do. I was deepening my meditation and mindfulness practice, and I was very happy. But I started longing for the love and the support that you get from a partner, of having someone always by your side looking out for you. And I thought maybe I could find someone as good as Ralph, but someone who didn't turn the lights off all the time or turn the heat down. So I started looking, and Len helped me write my profile. So when you start internet dating, first you need to decide what websites you're going to use. And I signed up for JDate and quickly realized that there weren't enough people registered, enough men to registered to really meet my needs. So then I went to Match and eHarmony, and I signed up for both of them. And they both have strengths and weaknesses. But before I get into that, I thought I would begin with some juicy stories about some of the guys that I met.
Yes, juicy stories.
Stories, yes. And when you read their profile, you have to count how many times they say they would like someone they can cuddle with, because that's an indication of how much they want sex right away, or if they're willing to wait a month. So that was my criteria. Too many cuddles, I wasn't interested in. So Bob said he lived in Kirkland and that he was an engineer for building bridges. Right now, he was in Amsterdam working on a project, and he was awaiting equipment from China to help finish the project, and then he was going to retire. Well, about 2 months into emailing, but not talking on the phone, he said that he had a broken part, and he had $15,000 for the part, but he needed another $10,000. Could I help him? No, I couldn't help him, and I said goodbye. Then there was Tom. Tom lived in Seattle, and he was a marine engineer. And he had to go to Mexico for a project. So the first thing I did on a submarine, I Googled whether or not they had submarines in Mexico. And lo and behold, they have engineering firms in Mexico that build submarines. And then he went on to say that his bank had informed him that they were closing due to COVID. And he had to move his assets. Could he trust me? I said, what do you mean? Yeah, of course you can trust me. He said, no, I really need to know if I can trust you. He wanted to send me $18 million in gold bars that he had to move, and he had made all the necessary arrangements, the papers and import documents. All he needed was the money to ship the gold. I said to him, no, I don't have any place to store $18 million worth of gold bars. Goodbye. Then there was Steve. I actually met Steve, and I knew right away that this was not a guy for me. He sat down and he brought out a notepad to take notes about our conversation. So after talking for a half an hour, he declared that I was satisfactory and he'd like to see me again. And one of the things that my friend Len had coached me on was, if this is a person not for you and you meet them, tell them right away. Don't string them on. So as politely and compassionately as I could, I told him that I thought he was very nice, but I didn't see him as a romantic interest, just as a friend. And sure enough, he emailed me a few times he took me literally, and he did email me a few times, and then I stopped answering his emails. So that was goodbye to Steve. Sam was a cowboy from Everett. And there were some qualities in his profile that I thought were very attractive. So we got together for coffee, and he was an awfully nice guy, and we got together one more time for dinner, and we both realized at the time that we were not a match, and we mutually agreed not to continue seeing each other. Dennis. I met Dennis for dinner, and he worked in finance. I have many, many strengths, but finance and math are not one of them. He continued to bore me with what he did. My eyes blurred over from his nonstop talking, but the kicker was that he never asked me anything about me. So that was the end of Dennis. Ben. Now, please don't get the impression that Monday I saw Steve and Tuesday I saw Sam and Wednesday Dennis. This is over a period of months. Ben was a really nice man. But we were not a match, and I knew that right from the beginning. But he was awfully nice, and he had many, many varied interests that I thought, gee, he'd be interesting to be a friend with. So he liked me a lot, but I was just interested in him as a friend. I went with him to a Christmas party, had lots of fun. After the Christmas party, we came back to the house, and we were watching a movie, and he was sitting on the couch, and I got up a few times to go do something and come back. And every time I came back, he was inching his way closer and closer to me until my dog Oliver bit him. Good old Oliver looking out for me. Dean. Dean was Jewish. Dean was Jewish. We went out for coffee, and when we were done, he leaned over to kiss me. Now, granted, I'd known him an hour, and I could hardly hear what he was saying half the time. And I pushed him away. I said, no, go away. So those are the highlights of some of the duds. There were a few nice guys that I liked, but for one reason or another, they didn't work out. And to start internet dating, what you do is you have to decide which app you want to use. And so what do? You go Google. You Google dating apps, and there are some geared for people in their 20s to 40s, and then 40s to 50s, and then there's what they call the senior internet dating. which I fell into. Um, so I got my most activity from Match. eHarmony, I like their website the best because they actually ask questions that you answered and they put that up on your profile and you really got more of a sense of who the person was. But for some reason or other, Match was the most active for me. The most interesting men that appealed to me, and I got a lot of replies. And in the beginning, it's so flattering that someone says, "Oh, you're cute," or "Oh, you're this," or "Oh, you're that," and it really is flattering, and it's lots of fun. It's like an adventure. Who are you going to find today? After a while, it got very, very tiresome. Very tiresome. Um, so the first step is to write a profile. No, the first step is to pick the website. And you subscribe, and they all have different fee structures. Then you write a profile detailing what you are looking for and listing your personal qualities. So I thought I would read you what I wrote, and so the first question was, what is the way to your heart? And I put, the way to my heart is through kindness. And then the vital statistics, what my height was, what my body type was, and they gave you different categories. So I selected slim, slender, that I had a bachelor's degree, what type of work I did. I was a sales rep of medical supplies at McKesson. And then they always asked about drugs. And I put, not for me. So they put on the profile, marijuana is not for me. And then in your own words, this is where you get to describe yourself. It's so hard to do. But I've gotten really good at it. I'm 74, vivacious, happy with myself and the life I've created as I've aged. I love to laugh and joke around. I see a cup as half full instead of half empty. I enjoy working out, going for walks with my dog, eating out, going to movies and theater whenever it becomes safe again. I enjoy travel and getting together with my many friends. I meditate and practice mindfulness in the Insight tradition. This year, I've been working on deepening my practice. I am, excuse me. I am known for my authenticity, honesty, generosity, and compassion. I'm a very good listener and expect the same from my partner. I don't think it really matters if we have many common interests. What does matter is that we share common core values, have each other's backs, are kind to each other, and respect our individuality. Also, honesty, being interested in meeting new people and trying new adventures. I was married 50 years, a widow for 2 years. I'm ready to meet my next great love. Trumpers need not reply. And then it answered a few other questions. What is your favorite place to hang out? I think they were talking about things like restaurants or resorts. I put in nature. And then other questions. I never smoke, drink sometimes, depends on the day, your race, your marital status, and whether or not you have children. No kids. And then the book you're currently reading, which was at the time, The Wonder of Aging. So that was my profile. This is a profile of someone that appealed to me. George. And so I don't know if you can see this very well. But there's a picture, and you see that one picture as you page through all these profiles. And if anyone looks appealing to you, you click on it and then you get to read the whole profile. But your first inclination is based on your physical appearance, which I think is pretty interesting. So George had 10 pictures. So he said he was a kind, loving, positive, romantic, generous, creative, spontaneous man who loves life, career, and family. I'm very active and a high energy person that keeps up with people half my age. I enjoy hiking, scuba diving, all water sports, boating, skiing, dancing, long walks, traveling, working in the yard, going to movies, plays, and concerts. I also enjoy entertaining friends in my home, cooking with my partner, and listening to music of all kinds. Have you noticed there was no cuddling in this first paragraph? We should share common interests, core values, family as a priority, travel, and an overall passion for life. We will be nurturing, caring, and always loving to and each other. We will develop an intimate relationship. Here's where it starts. By being open and honest with our communications and share our deepest feelings, fears, and hopes for the future. We will respect each other for who we are and accept the strengths as well as the shortcomings without trying to change the other. We will live and work as a team, bond together as one, but maintain our own self as individuals. Most of all, I'm looking for someone that together we can be best friends and lovers. Well, I thought he sounded like a pretty nice guy. I don't know whatever happened. Because I never contacted him and he never contacted me. But suppose I liked George. What I would do is I would click on an icon or a widget that said like, love, or interested. And I would click on that and then it would get sent to him. Emails, phone numbers are all kept private, so I don't know there's no direct contact. It goes through the website, and that's for safety reasons. And then if they're interested in you, they respond back, and you continuing emailing each other on their website until you're ready to meet. And the safest thing to do is to meet in a public place where there are lots of people. So my favorite was coffee, going out for coffee, someplace where I could hear the person. And there's so many places that are so noisy these days. I scoped out a coffee bar near me, and I live very close to Bellevue Square. And I met some guys at the Nordstrom Cafe on the 3rd floor. It was very convenient for me. And then I could go shopping, which was one of my favorite things to do. Okay. So what was I looking for? I was looking for someone within 50 miles who had a college degree and no children living at home, a profession that by my personal bias was acceptable to me, and a decent picture. You wouldn't believe some of these pictures these guys sent in. It's like they hadn't showered for days. Dirty t-shirts. They hadn't combed their hair. It was just unbelievable. And you'd think, what was he thinking? Well, clearly he wasn't thinking. So what you do is you sit down and go through the profiles. And most people are online in the evening. And you get a little message on the screen that says, there are 150,000 people online right now. And I often think to myself, isn't that sad? All these people are online looking, who knows what they're looking for. Some of them are looking for their next love, some of them their next partner, or some of them for their next sex mate. So, like I said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And that's so true with internet dating. I would spend an hour a day for weeks and weeks and weeks going through and looking for prospective people. And I would send them these little loves or these little likes. Most of them didn't respond. A few did and said, no, I'm not interested. And I always replied back, thank you. Good luck in your search. And when I received a notification, I did that as well. I thought that was a decent, polite thing to do and not ignore them. So then you send the messages back and forth and you hope something develops. So I now have a friend where we've done a lot of emailing. I haven't met him yet. And I'm looking forward to meeting him because I think he would be a great prospect to get to know better in person. So there's hope. There's hope. Now I wanted to move on to the pitfalls, the real pitfalls. And romance scamming is blossoming, just like romances are. And there's a number of signs that your romance could be a scam. It really is very prevalent now. And you really have to watch out for being tricked, because they can drain your bank accounts. Now, let me go back and say this. I'm taking this part of the talk from an article my friend sent me called 8 Signs Your New Romance Could Be a Scam. And seeing the largest growing age group of scams are women 70 and over who are widows.
Wow.
So people who want to scam you scan, SCAN, the websites looking for that population. And they develop friendships and romance, and then they ask for money. And many women go to their banks, get money, and give it to the guys. So in 2020, more than 23,000 victims reported losing more than $605 million to romance scams, according to the FBI. So there are romance scams for all ages, but as I said, the 70 plus is the largest target. So what to look out for? First, they profess their love too quickly. So just after a few interactions online, they'll say, they start using endearing terms like dear and honey and sweetie. They tell you you're amazing. But yes, you're amazing. So don't doubt that. But if someone uses the L word, right away, warning bells should be sounding. It's important to take things slowly, especially if you've never laid eyes on the person in real life. Another red flag is they work out of state or overseas. Some of the most common occupations made up by scammers include working on oil rigs. I had a guy like that. Serving in the military in an undisclosed location, physicians working outside the United States, and people in construction jobs that keep them on the road for most of the year. There are also multiple reports of a successful businessman in Turkey, momentarily short on cash, who needs gift cards for his son's birthday. So the guy that wanted me to pay for the shipping of his gold bullion was in Turkey. They asked for money for an emergency is another red flag. Con artists are big on talking about trust and use bogus stories of sad life circumstances, death in the family, injuries, to keep their new love interest concerned and involved in their schemes. They often ask victims to send money to help them overcome a difficult financial situation. Never send cash, preloaded gift cards, or money orders to someone you have never met in person or don't know well. They want to send you a large sum of money. Well, nobody ever did that. It was just gold. Some criminals are looking for people to launder money for them that was gained unlawfully. If a romantic interest you have only known for a short while wants to send you a pile of money, don't accept it. The guy that wanted to send me the gold, I said, well, I'm going to have to talk to my lawyer. I said, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to have to talk to my lawyer. Well, he didn't like that. The photos online are a little too perfect, and that's because people will Photoshop them. Or they'll take a picture of one person and put it on their on their profile as this person that they are, and it's totally false. They ask for personal information or photos. If a love interest wants to know your birthday, your bank account information, social security number, home address, zip codes, names of your pets and children, don't do it. They are 100% up to no good. Or they can use COVID as an excuse for not meeting you. Your new flame really wants to meet you. He even bought a plane ticket and a gift. He took off from work. Then, suddenly, his mother is hospitalized with pneumonia, and your first meeting is postponed again. And so it goes. They prefer email and texting to video chats. This is always a sign of someone who doesn't want you to know their true identity. There's a reason people say your eyes are the windows to your soul. Someone who doesn't want to show you their face can't be trusted. So what can you do to avoid being scammed? Don't accept friend or follow requests on social media from people you don't know. Clean up your social media accounts by removing any lists with your children or parents and your birthday. Scammers can use this information to figure out your passwords and gain access to other accounts. Interesting. Never send money, gift cards, or write wire transfers to someone you haven't met in person. It's so prevalent that when I went to buy a gift card recently, there were signs posted on the machines. Do not send this to someone you don't know. There are scammers everywhere. The retail clerk said, "What are you using this card for?" It was very interesting. Use dating websites with national reputations, but still assume criminals are trolling even the most reputable online spots for new victims. Use online search tools such as Google to make sure no one else shares the same profile information and photo that your new love interest is using. Also, look to see if the same storyline you have heard is being used on others. If you plan to meet someone in person that you have met online, Use caution, do not travel alone, and check the State Department's travel advisories before arranging any travel. And last, trust your gut. If something feels off, it very well could be. Talk about the new relationship with a trusted friend or family member to get their intake on the situation. My friend Len, every time he knew I was meeting somebody, he would call me up and he'd say, "What are you doing?" I'd say, "Oh, nothing." I said, "Do you want to come over?" And he would rush over and he'd sit me down and he would give me a lecture on how to be safe. And he would offer to come with me to the coffee shop and sit in the corner. So he was protecting me and making sure I was safe. And I had other friends also offer to do that. So in closing, you never know what you're going to get. Watch out for those chocolates. Any questions?
Yeah, I have two questions, Linda. What did you say about you're supposed to take information off of your computer that has your children's names? Is that what you said to avoid a scam?
Social media sites.
Oh, social media sites. Oh, okay, okay. And then the other question I have is, at what point did you decide that it was okay to meet someone? So it went beyond just the computer level.
Well, I didn't like emailing back and forth. I didn't like their the website's way to send and receive messages. So I would ask if I were interested in them after the first email. I would say, "Hey, let's get together for coffee," because I figured, what do I have to lose? And I would always go to a big open space where I was safe.
I suppose you could get a burner phone and talk to the person, give them that number, phone number.
That's an idea.
Now, you have to take a risk of whether or not you give out your phone number.
I wouldn't give out my phone number.
I did. And I never had any issues with that.
I even got a burner phone for recruiting people for a writing group. I didn't want to give out my personal number, and I just got the pay-as-you-go phone. And once we got the new people in, I, canceled it.
Have you ever done any internet dating?
No, I've never been single for long. I'm actually not single right now. I was just interested in your story. No, I met my current boyfriend because I was a customer of his when he used to own a tea shop in Issaquah. And I would go there to write or have meetings with people or study or whatever, or read a book, or, it was a fabulous place because, like you said, the coffee shops are noisy and the tea shop was quiet and had comfortable seats and all that. So, so I went there a lot, and I liked him, but I thought he was married because I heard on the phone him saying, "Oh, I'll be home for dinner at such and such time, blah, blah." I thought that was his wife. And I found out later from a friend that also frequented the coffee shop that was his son, and he was not married. And he never asked me out ever. And I finally, I said, "You know what? I'm just gonna do it." I asked my friends and they advice and how do I do it? What do I do it? And then what they were saying, ask him for coffee. I'm like, he owns a tea shop. I'm not gonna ask him to go for coffee. So then I was making reservations for a group at the tea shop. And in the course of emailing him, how many, what time, all that, I said, "Would you like to go to dinner with me?"
Oh, nice.
And I was panicked. I was watching, for response for like hours. And then he finally responded, "Yes, I'd love to."
Aww.
And turned out he was interested in me the whole time. He just had a policy: you don't hit on customers. That's why he had never asked me out. He was really glad I asked him out, and we've been together for 15 years.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, we'd both been divorced twice, so we decided we were not going to get married.
Well, that's definitely the preferred method of meeting
Mhm.
people. Um, uh, I would say going online, it would be the last choice.
Mhm.
I asked all my friends, I asked all my relatives if they knew anybody. Nobody knew anybody. Some of my friends suggested I wear a sign when I'm walking the dog looking for love, but that was a little too much for me, so I didn't do that.
Yeah, I know one woman, this was a couple years ago. I went to a Passover Seder, had to be pre-COVID, I'm thinking, and recently single. And I think we had to get up and say something about ourselves or whatever. And she stood up and indeed introduced herself as somebody single and looking. And months later, I don't remember how many months later, it's probably 3/4 of a year later, there she is with one of the guys that was at the Seder. And they were together, like really together. It was really nice.
Sweet,
You got to put it out there.
sweet. Well, you do. I mean, what else can you do? I don't know. I ran out of ideas, and I really would like to, still would like to, but I pretty much decided I'm done now. For a while, if not forever. My friend Len said that he goes on and off it. He's been single for 20 years. He's a widower. And he's had some great relationships, but nothing ever led to real love.
And you and he, no, not going to happen.
No, we're not a match. No,
Okay.
no, we're not a match at all. No. Unfortunately, he agrees.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great fun.
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear.
Thank you for
Yeah.
asking me, Stu.
Now, Linda, you said something that I wondered about, more technical, but you said you should search to see whether the person has used the same profile or the same picture for other people. How do you said a Google search? How do you
Yeah, there's
do
a
that?
way to do that. My friend did it for me, so I don't know, but it can be done. And sure enough, they found that this particular person had a picture, took a picture of someone else that was a musician, and they photoshopped it. And when I asked him to send me a picture, a few months after we had been communicating, he did, but he photoshopped that as well.
Well, I'll tell you a little story, and that is that about 13 years ago, I signed up on JDate, and I had a number of dates, and I found the whole thing very tedious. There was this whole business of getting to know somebody, and maybe you'd get an email, and then maybe a phone call, but till you finally got around to meeting somebody, seemed like it took forever. And I think, well, anyway, the end of this story was that Pauline, who I just married a week and a half ago.
Congratulations. Mazel tov.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, that
She-
was an interesting story, Stu.
She found me on JDate, and she did what you did, in that her first response, I don't know, I must have shown interest somehow or other. And her response was, the first date's the hardest. Why don't we have dinner together? And I was so delighted that I didn't have to jump through all these hoops in order to qualify to even be in her presence. And so I agreed, and it happened. It just happened that I set it up. I was going to run the Seattle Rock and Roll Marathon, and I set up this dinner for right after the evening after I ran the marathon. And at such a time, I am feeling like I can leap tall buildings in a single bound. You know, I could eat bricks for breakfast. So I was in a terrific mood, and we met at the restaurant that was across the street from the Harvard exit in Seattle. Anyway, I was in this great mood, and I came up and I introduced myself. I said, "Are you Pauline?" And she stood up, and I just gave her a big hug. And she was immediately concerned that maybe I was an axe murderer. I mean, she didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and she had arranged this escape plan. Her daughter, Hannah, was waiting with a car. But we had dinner, and as it turns out, she wasn't very hungry, but I was ready to eat anything in sight. And so I had my dinner and half of her dinner. Anyway, so we got to know each other and kind of became friends for a number of years. But COVID actually is what drove us together. And so I got married about a week and a half ago.
That's wonderful.
You
Yeah,
didn't say anything at the Seder, nothing. You didn't mention.
well, I don't know that you make such announcements at a Seder.
Well, I would like to have heard it. Well, congratulations, that's fabulous.
And you know, Stu, we need happy stories like that during this time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really helps us all.
Yeah, Linda, I was hoping yours had an ending like that. No, well, not yet anyway. Maybe still, no?
Yeah, but I'm not going to do it for a while. I'm going to take a break, and then there will be new blood, new faces on the sites, because you start seeing the same repetition of people over and over again.
Mm.
And there seemed like there were a lot of nice people that I never pursued because they lived too far away. They weren't within a 50-mile radius.
Mm. Well, my boyfriend retired 3 years ago and moved 5 hours away. So, yeah.
So you guys are long distancing?
Now we are, yeah. Yeah, he's waiting for me to retire so I can move up there with him, but I'm not ready to do that yet. So
I will add this. My career is as a lawyer, and there are a number of lawyer scams, and some of them sound very much like the ones you were talking about. A typical one is where somebody wants to retain you to help them, and they're going to send you money. They're going to send you a retainer, and you are going to collect money for them. And when you collect this money, you get a check. You're supposed to, as an attorney, you're supposed to put this money in your trust account. And they tell you you can keep 25% of it. Anyway, they send you a bad check. You put this bad check into your trust account, and they tell you you can, immediately take your 25%. And if you do that, and you've got other people's money in your trust account, which is not uncommon, then you've just taken money out of this account to pay yourself, while they have sent you a bad check. And you may have even sent them their part of the money,
Mhm.
which you supposedly collected. I wrote an article for the King County Bar Association on that. The guy actually sent me a check for $294,000 that I supposedly collected on his behalf. And I called the bank that the check was written on, and they told me, of course, the check was bad, and they had no record of it and all that. And in the meantime, the guy was telling me from Turkey, sounds familiar, he was in Turkey, and his wife was sick, and I should really, cut him some slack. That, just go ahead, deposit the check. Anyway, I still get these messages from guys in Nigeria who want me to help them bring gold bars here. Right.
Mhm.
So I understand there's a whole network of scammers. It's kind of like it's organized crime, and they share information with each other, and they're very professional.
Wow. Sometimes I wonder about these people. It sounds really to me like a lot of hard work. So why not just like do honest work if you're going to work that hard? you know, I don't know. I'm just a practical person. I mean, the morals aside, it just seems like a lot of work and risk when you could put that effort into something legal. I don't know.
Oh, well, I think it's not a lot of work. They're mostly untraceable, and they can do it over and over again. They can do it as a hobby, and they only need one or two hits, and they're ahead.
And I was just sent an email from supposedly the Social Security Administration, that my Social Security number had been compromised and was going to be suspended, and I needed to call them. So I called the number, and there were a couple of red flags. They started this tale, and it just got more involved and more involved. That some car had been abandoned on the border of Texas, and there was blood in the car, and my identification had been compromised. There was papers in the car that the car was in my title, had I ever been to Texas. And then the guy was saying, "No, I'm going to patch you through." He gave me a badge number. I mean, it sounded like Social Security. He said, "I'm going to set you through to the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms line, and don't cut off." And it just got wild. And I just said, I'm not very comfortable with this. I'm going to talk to my husband. He said, "Oh, no. But the kicker was the guy who was talking to me had such a thick accent that I had to have him repeat things. So when my husband came in, I said, "This is what's going on." And my husband picked up the phone. He said, "This is complete." And my husband, by the way, was a fraud investigator. He said, "This is complete and total." And he said a swear word. And he said, "Do you understand Do you get me? I'm going to call whatever organization he was going to call. And of course, they hung up right away. But the guy was talking about freezing assets, and he had to freeze the assets of the criminals, but he didn't want to freeze my assets. And, you know, then they start with, you know, what's your home address and your zip code and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
what's interesting is this is the month that I'm accepting Medicare. And so I'm going through the process of submitting things. And in my head, I'm going, oh, good grief, freezing assets. Well, I'm an executor on a estate. That's not going to work very well. And then there's my assets. And then there's, you know,
Oh.
so it just, anyway, but it's easy to kind of, you know, it's sort of this deal where they're going along and you're going like, this is just nutty. But they have it down. They speak the right language in terms of they present, and they've got it down and they're smooth. And you know, what one thing that he said was, you can't hang up, because if you cut off the alcohol, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms people, they can't help you, and then you've got to get a lawyer and blah blah blah. So it's very easy to get sucked into one of these things.
You know, I always independently check the numbers. I never, ever, if an email comes in or a phone call comes in, I never call back that number or send back that email. I go to the website, I find legitimate phone number, I call them, and I can't tell you how many times they tell me the one I got was not legit.
Well,
sometimes it was. I mean, I actually sometimes think they're scams and they're not. One was for I can't remember. It was housing authority. I had my daughter had qualified for something after I forgot I had submitted the application because it was so many years on the waiting list. And it finally came in, and I just thought it was scammy, and I ignored it for like a month. And then what I did was I ended up going to the King County website, looking up this person, making sure this person was an employee, calling that number, you know, and it turned out to be legitimate. I almost missed the opportunity.
Well, in this case, after my husband hung up the phone, I went to the email where it came from, and I clicked on the email where it then shows the full email. And it was from a Gmail account, you know, so you can do that. Yeah. But you're right. You should just never respond right away. And
I never respond by a reply. I go outside through the website, back, you know, out to another.
Well, and the Social Security Administration won't email you. They will send you a letter, as will the IRS.
As will the IRS. Yeah. They never.
But you know, I was like listening to this guy, and it was like, oh my goodness, you know.
Social Security though once also did call me, and it did turn out to be legit, and I thought it wasn't. Again, this was my daughter was collecting Social Security, and they found bonds that she had that I didn't know existed, and so right away, I'm thinking this is scammy, whatever. I ended up calling, you know, again around, and this was all legit. They had actually found these bonds, and I said, oh, I'm going to go look at all the safe deposit boxes, and I did, and I found them. They were going to deduct it from her Social Security and things like that. Right. But those were the only 2 times they were legit. Most of the time they were not. And one time I had an argument with some woman, and she's asking me all this personal information. I'm like, you called me, you tell me. I said, you tell me. And she said, well, then this conversation's over. And I said, well, then this conversation's over. You know?
Right. Yeah. Well, and Linda, I'm sorry that you had these people scamming you, because it's a violation, you know, it really is. It feels yucky. Well, for me, after I got off the phone with these people, I felt pretty yucky about it. But then I just said, well, you know, I just got to let it go. Yeah.
You know what you can learn? I learned a lot about this stuff. One is the AARP newsletter. They always have an article about these sorts of things. And then at work, they send you these little cute cartoony little 5-minute things, you know, where they, you know, the little cartoon characters scamming these other people. It's kind of cute, but you learn a lot.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mhm.
All
Well, I
right.
want to thank you all for
Yeah.
participating in another great speakers forum, Linda.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thumbs
Thank you,
up.
Really.
Linda. It was very interesting,
Yeah.
and I hope after a long, or however long rest, you get back in there.
Mhm.
And this one, and next time, be successful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Paid
Yeah.
my dues.
Amen.
And much happiness to you, Stu.
Why-
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Bye, everybody.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.